Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online series 8 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Today we are trying out a team that I have considered to be really strong, consistent for a while now. I actually haven't featured this team despite it being out for over a month, but I have used it just on the ladder when I have tough losing streaks just to get some wins because it feels really consistent. Now, Solgaleo was something that we featured in the opening week of Series 8, I think the first week or first 2 weeks, and that was Pato's team. That was, I think, the only Solgaleo team we've used on the channel thus far. And yeah, this team was created by Yuki, who you may recognize because we went up against one of his team creations just a couple of weeks ago, as well as Ryosuke, who you may remember because that was actually the player who eliminated me from Worlds back in 2013. So they came together and built this really cool Solgaleo team about a month ago. I think Solgaleo right now is definitely a little bit underplayed. You obviously see in terms of restricteds on the ladder, Zacian, Groudon, Kyogre, both of the Calyrex forms, and Yveltal. Solgaleo actually does have a pretty favorable matchup into a lot of the restricted Pokemon, and I think in general it's something that players just aren't as prepared for right now, despite it being really good, especially in the opening weeks of the metagame. So wanted to go back to this. You have your classic Solgaleo plus Spectre combination. Now there's a Grimmsnarl on this team, but it does not have that Sucker Punch. Instead, you've got classic Screens, Spirit Break, and Thunder Wave, as well as that Trick. So that Trick, of course, with Lagging Tail, really valuable. I feel like nowadays, most of the time when people see Grimmsnarl, they expect this dual screens Light Clay variant. And so this is always one of the fun things to do when a meta evolves, is basically either create a new version of a Pokemon that people use or revert back to something that was popular back in the day, but people don't expect as much nowadays. And I feel like people just don't respect the Trick Lagging Tail as much, so you can really punish players for that. This, set as Thunder Wave, I think Scary Face is something that's picked up a lot on Grimmsnarl recently, but Thunder Wave, I think, still very viable as an option. Of course, you have that chance of making your opponents immobile for a turn, and as well, they can't. With Scary Face, you can always switch out and back in, and so with Scary Face combos, you're typically aiming to just pick up a KO immediately the turn you Scary Face, but with Thunder Wave, that effect is, of course, permanent for the remainder of the game. A really interesting Tapu Fini set as well with Nature's Madness and Haze. Haze definitely really valuable in a format with so much setup, especially like Swords Dance Groudon, for example, so don't really need to go into great detail there. We've already used Nature's Madness Tapu Fini in the channel in Series 8, I think, at some point, but still worth noting that it's just really valuable against bulkier teams, like Trick Room-oriented teams, for example, where you might actually struggle to do a guaranteed 50% for the turn, especially against very bulky Trick Room setters like Porygon 2. That's where Tapu Fini can be really valuable. And then finally, Magnet Regieleki with that Eerie Impulse. Fast Eerie Impulse, I think, is still really strong. Eerie Impulse in general, still a really viable option. This helps out a lot, especially against Pokemon like Charizard or Venusaur in the Sun matchup, for example. And then classic Nasty Plot Rotom Heat. So, like I said, this team was actually developed about a month ago, so the metagame's obviously evolved a little bit since then. That being said, I think it's actually still really strong, really viable. And like I said, I haven't featured on Road to Rank yet, but I've been using this team a lot just to get some wins on the ladder when I feel like I'm in a tough streak. And that's something to note as well. I think changing your team is a really good way to kind of break out of a tough streak of games. And so, sometimes I have a rough streak of games when I'm practicing with the team on Road to Ranked, and I'm like, oh, I just can't shake out of it. I don't know if it's my play, maybe it's the team. And then going back to a team that you have, know that's consistent or have proven or have proven success with often can be valuable, and this is one of those. So I've been rambling on long enough. Let's get into today's episode. Once again, huge thank you to Yuki and Ryosuke for the team. Their Twitters are linked in the description below. And after this, I think we'll be going back to some of the other restricted Pokemon we haven't used yet. A couple of you sent some pretty cool Lunala teams. Giratina is one I still, of course, want to feature. So if any of you have built some Heat Giratina teams, feel free to send them my way. The best way is typically to just send me a DM on Twitter. And then we have Kyurem Black as well, and I have one of those teams lined up. So yeah, excited to round off our final couple of, serious restricted Pokemon as we close out Series 8 in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, thanks so much as always for watching, by the way. If you enjoyed, please show support by leaving a like, and let's get started. By the way, one reason alone that I really like Solgaleo is just because Zacian doesn't do very much damage into it, and you can return KO with something like a Max Quake. So this is definitely a Solgaleo game. The question is just the Grimmsnarl set from my opponent's end. Now they actually also have Hydreigon, which is pretty scary, right? Because that can max Darkness. So I actually lean towards playing passively in the early game and then trying to sweep with Spectre Solgaleo in the late game. Now typically you can lead Spectre Solgaleo, but I don't really feel that great about it here. So like Grimmsnarl is really interesting. I can't trick onto 3 of my opponent's Pokemon actually, so the trick isn't as valuable, but can be helpful if they choose to Dynamax Thundurus, although I actually think Max Hydreigon is probably their best bet in this game. Got Magnet. Oh, actually we have Eerie Impulse. Yeah, we're definitely leading Lucky. And then let's go Spectre plus Solgaleo in the back. I like that a lot. Fini's a little bit tempting here because of course they have 2 Dark types, and Hydreigon, like I said, I think is actually a pretty big offensive tool for them. And Rotom Heat, you know, does pretty well, especially into AB Thundurus and Zacian, but I'm pretty content with the 4 that we're bringing here, so let's see how it plays out. Thanks so much as always for watching Road Ranked. If you enjoyed, please share support by leaving a like, I'd really appreciate it. And question of the day, I want to know what your favorite mobile game is down in the comment section below. The main motivation for that question is because of Wild Rift coming out recently, but to be honest, I actually don't really play too many mobile games, so I don't have a great answer to this personally, but am curious if what everyone else is playing down in the comment section below. So let's get started. Hydreigon is definitely the main Pokemon I'm looking at here, and yep, there it is. It's just going to come out immediately. Very cool. But we have Eerie Impulse. So like the reality is I can Light Screen, and I can even just Spirit Break Hydreigon actually rather than Light Screening. Light Screen's valuable if Grimmsnarl doesn't fake out either. So like I'm definitely down to Light Screen Eerie Impulse turn 1 into Hydreigon. I guess the only way this doesn't work is if... Yeah, okay, they're going to go for fake out. Okay, but they target Hydreigon, nice. They didn't Dynamax the Hydreigon, though. Sorry, they target Grimmsnarl. They didn't Dynamax Hydreigon, which I'm kind of sad about. Because if they did that, I feel like we kind of just win the game. So good decision on their end to not max that. They're just going to go for an Earth Power. So maybe expecting the Eerie Impulse. If so, it's a really, really nice read. Okay, it's Life Orb. I'm definitely content to Light... Oh, is Hydreigon really going to stay in here on a Spirit Break? Kind of want to just double up on a Grimmsnarl for a KO right now. I could always protect a Lucky Spirit Break, but... I don't know. I feel like Hydreigon here is definitely going to want to switch out. I'm content going for a double up on a Grimmsnarl here. I think I'll take it. Yep, there's the switch. Zacian? Okay, they go into Milotic. Yeah, okay, that's also why we didn't want to Spirit Break into that slot specifically. That could have been kind of bad. So I can get rid of Milotic's item and get a Lagging Tail onto it. Looks like Grimmsnarl is actually just going to opt to attack here. And they're Lagging Tail as well. Huh. Wow, but because both of us are Lagging Tail, I just end up KOing them before they can attack. Okay, great. This is a good example, though, of how you could see how my opponent led specifically to beat Spectre Solgaleo, right? If you lead Grimmsnarl plus the Hydreigon, you can just trick the weakness policy away and then Dynamax. So, obviously, very happy to prevent that from happening. Now, they bring out Zacian, but this is where Thunder Wave can be so good for us, right? We just get a free Thunder Wave off onto Zacian. And I'm honestly content to just Thunderbolt into Milotic, because at this point, late game Solgaleo should be really good for us. So I think the key thing to think about when you're using... Okay, ooh, I like the Helping Hand. If they get fully paralyzed here, I think this game is just over, honestly. Ah, but they have Quick Attack. Helping Hand Quick Attack, okay. See, the downside of Thunder Waving is now I can't Will-O-Wisp onto that slot with Spectre, but that's okay. You don't see that every day. It is a little bit scary because Aleki was such good offense there, so maybe it was better to protect the Aleki there. That play felt really safe, but the only way my opponent could have countered me there was with Helping Hand plus Quick Attack. So that's wild. The thing is, I wish I had Sucker Punch here, because if I did, this would be such a free win at this point, right? We just bring out Solgaleo, self-Sucker Punch, Steel Spike, and then go from there. But it's still okay. I think we can trick Lagging Tail into Milotic there, get rid of its item. I think I'm down to still go out into the Solgaleo right now. Yeah. Light Screen may be more valuable here, because I can see Zacian switching out into Hydreigon. Steel Spike into Zacian is pretty safe here. My only fear is getting burnt by the Milotic here. I think I'd rather have Light Screen going towards this late game because of Milotic and the Hydreigon. So I think I'm just going to Light Screen protect this turn, honestly. Yeah, like if you... Oh, they're going to max? No, okay, yeah. Because we go into the end game with Light Screen, it's really nice. But yeah, I think if we had Sucker Punch here, this would be a done deal, more or less. Okay, yep, they Scald into Solgaleo. And Zacian gets paralyzed. Well, that's definitely a fortunate paralysis. Don't know what they were going for there, but can trick Milotic now. My only fear here is still getting burnt, but I think I'm going to trick and just Quake into Zacian. Steel Spike might be better into Zacian, actually. Because it covers for the Hydreigon switch. Although, I'd rather cover for the switch here. I don't want to get too greedy and try to one-shot Zacian, because I think a switch out here definitely makes a lot of sense from my opponent's perspective. My only fear is, yeah, with Regieleki going down as quickly as it did. I wouldn't have minded getting knocked out there, by the way, because if you KO us, I can just bring Spectre, Bulldoze, Max Quake into Milotic. So, I was hoping Zacian would attack there and attack into the Grimmsnarl, but they very likely could have doubled up onto Solgaleo as well. Other problem here is that Solgaleo could just protect, so I could have Max Quaked Milotic instead. But they don't protect, okay. I don't know, I wanted to Quake Zacian there, and given that they didn't protect, like, maybe that was just the correct play. Get the Ogwav Berry, which is actually quite nice here, honestly. Like, clearly they're waiting to just Dynamax the Hydreigon. It's good damage with Steel Spike, but not enough for a KO. I think Quake would have finished it off there, so maybe I should have just gone for it, because it does just feel like a insta game-winning play. Scald comes out. No burn, which is huge. And they're going to Behemoth Blade here. Hopefully in a Grimmsnarl, because, like, Grimmsnarl's done everything I needed to do in this game. Nice, perfect. So, like, that's why I wanted us to Feint last turn. Because now I can get the Bulldoze off, I've gotten Light Screen off, and I can go for Max Quake onto Milotic. Yeah. My opponent can definitely still win this, though, because they actually conserve their Hydreigon really, really smartly. My only other fear is Bulldoze Quake not KOing. But I think we go for it here for sure. Because the special defense boost is also just so valuable. But this is where, like, imagine if I just Quaked into Zacian last turn. Well, then I guess I don't get the free switch in, but then I can just Spirit Break into Hydreigon. That also probably wins us the game. So that last turn actually may have been an opportunity to just go for the Quake anyway. Sure, I'm worried about Hydreigon, but the reality is that the Grimmsnarl actually walls Hydreigon pretty well. So for that reason, even if you switch into a Max Quake, what's your Hydreigon going to do against a Grimmsnarl that now has Ogwav Berry? Not very much at all, to be honest. So I think if I were to replay that turn, I would have just gone for Max Quake onto Zacian instead. The Helping Hand Quick Attack really caught me off guard, though, I have to say. Because, like, I felt like we just had the game won if that didn't come out. Now there's the Zacian switch out. There you go. Okay. Yeah. Alright, we'll get Bulldoze off. I also don't know if this +2 Max Quake KOs the Milotic, which scares me a little bit. Because, like, I just activated Competitive, but, like, Competitive isn't even that relevant here. The only problem is if you actually get a burn onto me. Because then it means I do significantly less damage into Hydreigon. But I think it's still right to proc the policy here, especially because we have the Sash on the Spectrier. So let's see. Gonna get the Max Quake off. This is a position where I kind of wish I had, like, Max Psychic instead. Ooh, we don't KO Milotic, okay. But if we don't get burnt here on the Solgaleo, it's not even that much of an issue. They could Icy Win here, which would be interesting. It's just Scald coming out, yeah. It's not much damage. Please no burn. Wow, okay. Not getting burnt both times in a row is definitely very nice, because now I can just Shadow Ball into Milotic, and I think we just go for Steel Spike here into Hydreigon. But the problem is still, I don't have great damage against Hydreigon outside of Solgaleo, and I'm assuming Hydreigon's max speed here, so it outspeeds us, which scares me. So, I think one thing I didn't realize super well in this game was how to conserve the Grimmsnarl. I also had that opportunity to protect that Regieleki, as I mentioned, and I didn't go for that play. But, I don't know, helping out Quick Attack is so niche. Like, my opponent literally needed the combination of that. Now, granted, let's say you don't have that. A more likely option I would expect in that situation is Milotic protecting and then Zacian just KOing us. But I feel like +2 Steel Spike should do very good damage in Hydreigon. I really like this play from my opponent's end. Like, I think that's exactly what they actually needed to do. That was really smart. You just sack both Pokemon here so that Hydreigon doesn't take any damage. And my indecision to Max Quake Zacian on that first turn may punish me in the end. That full para may have actually worked against us as well. The thing is, I have +1 special defense. I have +1 special attack on the Spectrier. Spectrier is focus sashed as well. So, like, our endgame is still not even looking that bad, but it's just scary because the Hydreigon can obviously Dynamax. But I took the safest approach in this game possible. And if we end up losing, then I definitely have to reassess whether or not it was worth going through this safe route, for example. I guess my question is whether or not Max Darkness KOs. We have a special defense boost and Light Screen is up, so I wouldn't think so. I'm not 100% sure on that. It was really, really good of my opponent to not Dynamax turn 1. That was a really smart play. It's our last turn of Light Screen. I was thinking of protecting Soak here, but I think because it's our last turn of Light Screen, we just attack here. So, yeah, just going to go for Shadow Ball. Going to go for that Sunsteel Strike. And if Hydreigon actually one-shots us here, even with the Light Screen and the special defense boost, then might shed a tear. Hydreigon's pretty cool in the format right now, though, especially because it matches up decently well into Sun. You'll even sometimes see like Max Rockfall sets with like Assault Vest. So I think if Solgaleo survives this, we probably win the game, because that means you still need 3 more attacks to win. But if you one-shot us here, actually, you definitely win if you one-shot us here. Decent damage from Shadow Ball. No special defense drop. They're going to go Max Darkness into... Oh! They read the Protect. Okay. I don't know if that would have KO'd, but I think now we definitely win the game. I like the decision to read the Protect there, though, honestly. I really do. Light Screen wears off, but yeah, now Shadow Ball KOs. Because let's say I actually protected there, I would lose the game, right? Because then I don't get any damage on a Hydreigon. Hydreigon presumably KOs us. I don't know if it one-shots. I mean, that's the main question. But because it was our last turn of Light Screen, you might as well just attack in that position. So in the end, I mean, this was a close game. I think Hydreigon's really scary, especially as a Solgaleo user, because it does so well until the Solgaleo Spectre lead specifically. So we had to lead against it. But my opponent made some really nice plays in this game. Also, we didn't get burnt at any point with the Solgaleo, which was really critical. I think if we eat a burn there, this game is definitely drastically different as well. And my opponent scalded twice, so to avoid 2 burns in a row is definitely pretty fortunate. I mean, it's, pretty close to 50-50 there, but still, like, a burn definitely can change the outcome of that game for sure. So yeah, I mean, that was, like, my opponent did a lot of smart things in that game. You could see how they led specifically, first of all, to counter Solgaleo, especially because they were lagging Tail on the Grimmsnarl. They made the decision to just stay in with Zacian when I could have just gone for Max Quake onto it. That gave them a lot of momentum as well. Because, like, I think if I Max Quaked into Zacian that turn, I feel like it's just a game-winning play from our end. But like I said, I really was nervous about the Hydreigon switch in, and I felt like we had a good enough lead where we could risk that. The Helping Hand Quick Attack combo was also really interesting to see. So, yeah. Also, they didn't Dynamax Hydreigon on turn 1. Like, they made a lot of smart decisions that definitely kept them in the game, because I felt like we had a pretty favorable matchup as long as we executed the Solgaleo properly. But my opponent definitely fought really hard in that one, so kudos to them. Okay, oh man, it's the Ferrothorn on the opposing end that really scares me here. Like, I want to bring a Lecky, but if I'm bringing a Lecky, it's really just the Eerie Impulse Kyogre, right? That doesn't feel super good. Tailwind's a problem, so I think we need to definitely get a trick onto whatever... The good thing is they don't have Fake Out. We definitely need to get a trick onto whatever we think is going to Dynamax from my opponent's end. But once again, I don't think this is a Spectre Solgaleo lead because they have so much speed control. And with Spectre Solgaleo, typically your goal is to just Bulldoze and then Dynamax and pick up a KO onto something, but I can't do that as easily here. If I do, it's at the cost of taking a lot of damage in return, and we don't like that. My problem, though, is if I don't bring in Rotom Heat, the late-game Ferrothorn can be a huge nuisance to us. So I almost feel forced to bring this, but it does not feel good. I guess it's not bad in this matchup either, though. But I'm just very Kyogre weak right now with what I brought. So if my opponent plays for its Kyogre, we definitely want to get Light Screen up. We definitely want to get a trick onto it as well. What's interesting is if I actually manage to get the trick onto it, Rotom can max and then max Flare. That changes the weather. Water Spout's still going to hurt, but significantly less. And it's Whimsicott Kyogre. Ugh. I wanted to go Grimmsnarl Lecky so badly, and it would have been so good for us. Because I could just, like, T-Wave Thunderbolt Kyogre. So... my opponent outleads me here. It's so frustrating because it's debating between Rotom and Lecky, but I guess Rotom as a lead doesn't even make that much sense because even if they have Ferrothorn, they're never leading Ferrothorn in this position, right? I don't mind going for a trick here and a Protect turn 1. Okay, they're just Helping Hand. Yeah. If you're Helping Handing... I was going to say, are you Scarfed? So otherwise... like, my opponent made that play with relative confidence, it looked like. Okay, now... Oh, no, it's just Mystic Water. Okay. This should KO Grimmsnarl, though. So, yeah. I think if I led Regieleki, I would have just gone Scary Face Thunderbolt onto Kyogre turn 1. And now I don't get screens up. The good thing is I got the Lagging Tail onto it, but the bad thing is we kind of wanted to Lagging Tail whatever we thought was going to Dynamax. I think what we maybe want to do right now is actually keep Kyogre out on the field, deny free switch-ins, but this is not looking good. My lead matchup here was not great, but Grimmsnarl-Eleki doesn't feel amazing if my opponent leads Landorus, right? Well, I guess if you lead Landorus, actually I can trick. So, yeah, if I were to replay this, I would just go Eleki and drop the Rotom and say, hey, if you have Ferrothorn in the late game, I can just taunt it. And it's still tough, though. What do I do here is the question now. Can I get a nasty plot off? Probably not. I could self-overheat, which is kind of interesting. But I don't think I want to do it this turn. I'm Quaking Thunderbolting Kyogre, but Kyogre could so easily switch out here. Okay, they don't switch out, which is really good. It probably protects here, but if not, then this is actually not a bad turn for us at all. It's just, in the end, like... We really wanted to get Lagging Tail into whatever Dynamax is from my opponent's end, and I didn't manage to do that. I also was curious if a Steel Spike plus T-Bolt KOs here, but I didn't think so. Rockfall may have been better, but I like the idea of a special defense boost. Wow, they actually max Kyogre. Okay, I didn't see that coming. And that makes sense. I guess all things considered, I'll take that, but... I didn't get enough off with Grimmsnarl. The speed control is so good for us in this one, and yeah, so I assume you Tailwind right now. Oh, Taunt. I guess maybe to deny Trick Room. Okay, that makes sense. A little bit frustrating. If I went Rockfall, it's probably still not getting Tailwind up anytime soon. I mean, I get a special defense boost. I'm pretty sure Geyser still KOs Rotom in Rain. Assuming they targeted Rotom, maybe they actually targeted Solgaleo here. I'm just nervous, though, because they probably have that Urshifu in the back, and it's like, if I'm giving up Rotom this early on, I brought it to deal with the Ferrothorn. We get the Para, though. No full Para, though, okay. Who did they Geyser? You would think Rotom, because I protected last turn. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if they have Ferrothorn waiting for me in the back, and so that's why they're prioritizing picking up the knockout so quickly onto it. But I think this is definitely still winnable. Yeah. I can Bulldoze here. I think I'm just going to Bulldoze Max Quake because Whimsicott doesn't actually scare me right now. If my opponent gets a Tailwind up, so be it. But I still have Sash. Wow. Full Para last turn would have... Feels kind of game-winning to me if we get it. Whimsicott's not going for Tailwind. Okay, that frustrates me a little bit because I definitely could have just Steel Spiked Whimsicott. And then I feel like Spectre plus Sog actually wins, but really felt the need to respect Kyogre here. And that's a really nice play, actually, that my opponent didn't Tailwind. It's actually, there's no point in Tailwinding Whimsicott here if you don't think you're getting targeted. So I actually should have played towards that and actually targeted the Whimsicott as a result. Because I think what my opponent does here is you double up onto the Spectre, assuming like you have Urshifu in the back. And then you can bring in Urshifu and then just Tailwind. Tailwind and Wicked Blow into Spectrier. And then Urshifu should win you the game here. So I think that's the approach my opponent's taking. I assume Ferrothorn's their last one. Yeah, so it's Moonblast into Spectrier here, I think. Oh, man. I think I actually should have gone for the KO into Whimsicott, because if you don't get Tailwind up... Oh, actually, you could still Sucker Punch, but then I could Will-O-Wisp your Urshifu. Oh, yeah, that's actually a really big mistake. I was just too nervous about Kyogre's damage output, but there's no reason to be nervous about it when we have the Focus Sash here. Now you just Tailwind and Wicked Blow. I don't have any counterplay to that. Curious if they're not even sashed on the Whimsicott then, but we could still win if you're not sashed on Urshifu. Or +2 Rockfall into Sand KOs? No, I don't think so. I think our only hope here is for them to not be Focus Sash here. Or for them to... I could have gone Will-O-Wisp there in case they Sucker Punched, but yeah, you always Tailwind there. So I think the better play this game would have been to KO Whimsicott, but ultimately in this game, like, I should have just gone with my initial lead, but this is what Ferrothorn does in Team Preview, right? I see Ferrothorn, I'm like, oh, I have to absolutely respect it. And as a result, I end up leading Rotom into a Kyogre. So, like I said, my lead was never the best, because even if I'm bringing Rotom to cover for the Ferrothorn, it definitely shouldn't be coming out as a lead. Now, we could still win this if Ferrothorn is their last one and they're not sashed here. And they're not sashed. Okay. So there's a chance. There's a chance. It also just could be Thundurus or Landorus, but I think it's always Ferrothorn here. Yeah. Because the thing is, if I just had a Lecky, our lead is amazing. And then, like, sure, late game Ferrothorn's scary, but I think with between Taunt, Will-O-Wisp, and the Solgaleo, we actually have enough resources to deal with Ferrothorn. So, yeah. I'm just going to Earthquake here, but Ferrothorn presumably Iron defenses. We don't have a fighting type attack. It's going to be close, though. Actually, you don't need to... You should Leech Seed... No, you shouldn't Leech Seed first. You should always Iron Defense first. Because +2 Earthquake's going to do a sizable amount to Ferrothorn, but I'm assuming this is just max HP defense. Okay, that's actually not bad damage. If you went for Leech Seed and missed here, that'd be huge, but yeah, it's just Iron Defense. Okay, yeah, if I were to replay this, this is a good example of a game where I could actually drop Rotom Heat, because Spectra plus Soul against late game Ferrothorn should win. So I think if I just let a Lecky over Rotom Heat, we would have actually had a very favorable matchup here, but that's okay. We could always crit Earthquake here, so we just keep going for it. I also could have Rock Slided last turn, go for a flinch. Doesn't do that much into Ferrothorn, though. I'm just going to keep Earthquaking. Because a single Earthquake crit, and we can still win right now. So, it's not over by any means. But they're going to hit Leech Seed as well. That will probably secure the game, to be honest, but we can still try. I also could have just gone Sunsteel Strike and a Whimsicott initially, but I don't know. I'd rather Earthquake in that position. I think my opponent definitely brought the 4 Pokemon that made the most sense, and so I should have thought about it more. I should have thought about, hey, which are the 4 that are likely going to come out, and how do I actually counter those? What's our win con right now? I think EQ may... Well, actually, this Whimsicott looks kind of bulky. I'm really curious on the item on it. They don't protect Ferrothorn, though. Okay. I'll take that. Also makes sense to not protect, though, I guess. Good. But if I crit here... Wow, that's such a bulky Whimsicott. Actually really impressed by its bulk. Our win con is still to just go for a crit, like, try to get a crit onto Ferrothorn with Earthquake, so... I'm not going to give up because we have an out here. But the out just gets increasingly slimmer every turn, right? Especially because I'm on a timer with the recovery on the Ferrothorn. So, yeah, if I were to replay this, just lead a Lecky, Thunderwave, Thunderbolt into Kyogre turn 1. That severely reduces... And given what my opponent brought, they were always going to max Kyogre, as you can see. I think my lead was more out of fear of Ferrothorn. Like, yeah, it was just a suboptimal lead from my end here. Okay, they go for a Helping Hand. So they're going for, a Body Press here. That alone might just KO, to be honest. But we do have some defense boosts. Actually, it's just 1, right? Still no crit on the Ferrothorn. And this is why Ferrothorn can be an absolute late game monster. But we had the tools to deal with it here. I just didn't execute super well. Yeah, it's actually enough for a KO. Yeah, well played. Yeah, I think if I were to replay this, just as always, Grimmsnarl, Lecky. I don't need to be that nervous about Ferrothorn if I actually have Spectre to deal with it in the late game. And even what was I nervous about with Grimmelecky? My opponent leading Landorus-T. It's not even that concerning, because like Landorus-T is probably going to Dynamax if you're bringing it out, right? So I can steal away its item, then I can max the Solgaleo as well. And then... Alright, last match of the day. And it's classic Sun stuff here. Rotom's definitely good, but has to worry about Landorus. Will-O-Wisp is really valuable from Spectre here. Lagging Tail into whatever I can is really nice. Solgaleo's not bad here. It's just tough to guarantee the policy. And, like, you can see the slight downside with this team is that the very top team compositions often will have pretty definitive answers, so you can't just lead Spectre or Solgaleo immediately. So you have to work a little bit harder with it, which is fine. Thinking here we just go Grimmsnarl, Rotom, Solgaleo, plus Spectre. Yeah, I like that. Let's see how this plays out. Okay. So the idea here is basically to try to disrupt early, try to get a lagging tail into whatever I think is going to Dynamax, and ideally position Solgaleo to the point where we can just get that policy activation with Spectre and go from there. We're just gonna go with Charizard and not Charizard, Venusaur and Torkoal. I mean, Rotom's really good here. The only fear is basically, actually, I don't think I have to worry too much here, right? I think we can always just trick the lagging tail into Venusaur, protect Rotom turn 1. The only way you get around that is if you actually manage to protect Venusaur, but that feels somewhat unlikely to me here. If Protect comes out, though, it'll be frustrating because I had the opportunity to just go for a nasty plot, but they're going to let Max Venusaur, it looks like, here. My question now is whether or not Max Flare KOs Venusaur. I could also just bring out Solgaleo, I guess, and Max Rockfall Overheat into Venu. Part of me wanted to just Overheat immediately on turn 1, but here's the thing. A lot of Rotoms carry safety goggles these days, so players won't just try to Sleep Powder into it, but I don't know. Sometimes people will. Some people just really like clicking Sleep Powder. Yeah, they're Koba. They just go for Vine Lash. Okay, that makes sense. Wow, just no regard for Rotom here from their end. Okay, that was their Rotom counter. The yawn. That makes sense. You know, I'll take that turn 1, though. I don't think it's actually that bad for us. I can Light Screen this next turn, which is fantastic for us. I think let's just go for a Light Screen and an Overheat into Venusaur. Because we're playing the long game to Dynamax Solgaleo in this endgame. I think, I will say one of the downsides of Solgaleo Spectre is that it is pretty weak to Urshifu, and so in practicing with this team and in just some of the games I played while on the ladder, one of the problems you can run into is your opponent basically just conserving an Urshifu for the late game. That makes the Spectre stuff a lot weaker. And that's such a bad miss. Oh. Okay. It happens. That is really frustrating, though, I can't lie. Man. Because if we hit that Venusaur, like, I mean, it probably doesn't get KO'd, but it just takes so much damage. That's fine. Let's not tilt. Let's not tilt. I think the problem here is I have to let Rotom go to sleep. I can't safely switch in Spectre right now. So I'll just protect and Overheat again, but that's a brutal miss. If there was any time we needed Overheat to hit, it was that turn. Sure, it doesn't KO probably, but I don't need it to KO, right? All I need to do is do enough damage, because then what I can do is just Max Quake it, and then or Max Rockfall and switch Rotom out into these Spectre Air. So the downside of that miss is now I also get not paralyzed. I'm gonna fall asleep with a hand. They have Max Guard. Yeah, I mean this is exactly the problem. Yeah, they just yawn into Solgaleo. That's actually a little frustrating because I could have switched Rotom out into Spectre Air. Wow, they actually did not counter that play at all. Okay. I don't think it was worth it to switch out there. That's just the main thing. I think I'm gonna switch here. Does that make sense? I'm just taking so much Vine Lash damage. I'm switching because I think you always go for the yawn onto Spectre Air. What a tough miss, though. Oh, they actually body press into Rotom. Okay. Honestly, I wouldn't mind body press Sludge Bomb into Rotom, and we just really play towards late game Solgaleo here. I also could have just maxed Solgaleo, I guess. And they go for Sleep Powder, but I do end up dodging that one at least, which is nice. Man, I mean, I feel forced to taunt here into Venusaur, but that doesn't feel great. Could also wake up. I think I'm going to taunt Thunderbolt here. I mean, we really need to pull off the comeback with Solgaleo here. So I can't get put to sleep. We were lucky enough to dodge that Sleep Powder to begin with, but I guess I'd rather just have hit Overheat in the first place. Yeah, and it's a 2-turn sleep, so it's a little unfortunate. Body Press will come out, but the comeback is still definitely doable. Like, Solgaleo can absolutely pull off this late game comeback. See if they Sleep Powdered here. They Weather Ball. I don't think that should KO us, so it's fine, but yeah, it's not that much. Sunlight fades. Okay. I guess the problem is that Zacian's going to be in the back for my opponent, right? And Well, you can't sleep powder with Venusaur is actually pretty useless here, I suppose. And they don't have, well, their one rock resist is Zacian, but Bulldoze covers the Zacian switching, so I think we just Bulldoze, Dynamax, and Rockfall in this position. Yeah. Torkoal maybe consider switching? The problem is that Zacian outspeeds the Spectrier. Is Torkoal ever staying in here? You could to punish a Yawn. Okay, they switch out Venusaur. I'm okay with that. There's the Zacian. That's actually so critical they just switched in, though. Because it means I get the Bulldoze off against Zacian, which is actually so important here. Oh, it's a double switch. Okay. Into Grimmsnarl. I mean, I'll take this. I think Solgaleo can definitely pull off this comeback because my opponent just switches Zacian in. I'm hoping the Bulldoze +2 Rockfall KOs the Torkoal, but if not, that's a problem. I could have Max Quake there as well. That would have given me a special defense boost, which is kind of valuable. Steel Spiking is tempting there, but it's really greedy if they actually just... Like, if they stay in and yawn into Solgaleo, we just insta-lose the game, so that doesn't feel worth it to me. But the good thing about late-game Solgaleo is it does have good coverage into everything my opponent has right now. And more critically, we get that speed drop onto Zacian. So, like, our two Pokemon are just faster than my opponent's right now. And they don't have... We know all of their Pokemon now. We know they don't have the safe switch into ground-type attacks. Okay, we get the KO with Max Rockfall. That's huge. Yeah, okay. Let's see if we can get the Solgaleo train rolling then, because that was a fantastic turn for us. It was really critical they missed Sleep Powder onto the Spectrier, so we were really lucky there. But I'll take that as revenge for missing Overheat. Although the Sleep Powder miss does feel more critical. That being said, that's the thing. With Venusaur, there's just a lot of variance that you can induce right from the start. Do we outspeed? We are max speed. So I think we should outspeed the Zacian, right? So the best play feels like Taunt into Venusaur. To be honest, you should switch Zacian out if you're my opponent right now. Into Torkoal. I think I'm gonna... Is it Focus Sash Venusaur? That's my only fear now. This turn, a little bit questionable. I'm not sure this was my best play. They switched the Venusaur out? Wow. Did Zacian protect? Okay, that makes more sense. I Steel Spike for a defense boost, but no, it should always be Max Quake there. Because here's the problem. Now you can switch the... Well, the thing is, I mean, I still have +2 Earthquake in this endgame, and I still have the Lagging Tail on Venusaur. I mean, that was a good switch. I think if I Quake there, we insta-win the game, though. So I should have just gone for Quake there. I'm not sure the defense boost is worth it over instantly winning the game. Zacian definitely switches out here, right? There's no way it doesn't switch out. So I can Shadow Ball Zacian and Max Quake into Torkoal. Is there any point in Rock Falling? Changes the weather. I think Quake is probably still better here, though. Changing the weather does mean no Weather Ball. I'm going for Quake. I should have Quaked last round until Venusaur. That actually would have just won us the game. Yeah, so there's the Zacian switch out. They do manage to get Zacian out safely, so that was a job well done on their end. Yeah, Torkoal protects. Okay. So in the end, it's basically going to be whether or not I can... Because I should pick up a double KO this next turn, right? Which is good for us. Ooh, Shadow Ball does under half. That actually was a reason to Rockfall, I suppose. Change the weather. Okay. Change the weather and get Sandstorm Chip onto Venusaur specifically. Yeah, it's Berry Torkoal too. Okay. I think a Shadow... I'm not sure. Shadow Ball's a KO onto that. Oh, Rockfall actually was definitely the play then. Because Shadow Ball looks like it's a roll on Venusaur, not one that's great for us. Does +2 Rock Slide KO here? Is the other question. I could also just Earthquake, right? That probably picks up a double KO. And then it's just Solgaleo versus Zacian. I don't think a +1 Sacred Sword KOs, and I think Earthquake KOs in return. So honestly, that's the play I'm leaning towards right now. Because, like, let's say Shadow Ball doesn't KO Torkoal, then they can yawn us, and that's really bad. I should have Rockfalled last turn. Yeah, so they're going to give up both of their Pokemon here. Let's see if Shadow Ball actually would have KO Torkoal. Yeah, it survived with... See, so, like, let's say... Because here, my opponent has two things that threaten us with Sleep. But I definitely misplayed this endgame. Like, I feel like I should have just had this one if I played better. That being said, we still have a +2 Solgaleo with Earthquake against Zacian, and it's all now single target, so I think we should just definitely KO Zacian. So Zacian needs to KO Solgaleo, but I don't think a +1 Sacred Sword actually does it, because we're pretty bulky. So, it's the moment of truth. But my opponent honestly, like, fought out of a pretty tough situation after we got Solgaleo activated. This one was weird, though, because Rotom was a really good Dynamax candidate, but their answer to it was to yawn. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we should take a +1 Sacred Sword here, but if not, I'll be really sad. Now, obviously, it ignores the defense boosts, but okay, nice job. Solgaleo takes it, and we get the Earthquake off. This should KO. Single target +2 attack. Alright, nice. I mean, that's why you don't give up. That's why you don't want to tilt after, you know, like that Overheat miss, for example. But it sucks, though, because like it's not like I played really well to get here. I got... Well, I mean, I made the most out of that Sleep Powder miss, but the reality is that without that Sleep Powder miss, we lose the game. But, you know, like, games get harder if you miss attacks, and so sometimes, I mean, of course you can win without any RNG, but any luck that you can get will benefit you a little bit more. Yeah, and I'm actually thinking, like, how much of that Overheat miss actually matter? Because it wouldn't have KO'd Venusaur, right? But it still does so much damage. I have Light Screen up, and then, like, it just means that I'm, like... Part of the problem here is I get put to sleep, right? But if you yawn, you don't immediately put me to sleep, I can switch out the subsequent turn. So I was thinking Overheat does enough into Venusaur where Spectre can come out and just Shadow Ball. And I guess you can Yawn Cycle, though. You could predict the Rotom to switch on and Yawn it again. So, in the end, I don't know. Maybe the Sleep Powder miss was actually more critical than the Overheat miss. That's what it feels like to me, because I don't think Overheat one-shots Venusaur, especially because it's Dynamax. Like, it does a lot, probably like 80%, but it doesn't KO. So, we definitely got lucky there. But this is the thing about Sun. It can be very variance-inducing. Just the move Sleep Powder alone, like, that's one of the highest variance moves that you see on a high level. Because, like, you can hit or you can miss 25% of the time. And then even when you hit, right, like, typically Venusaur is attacking first, so you burn a turn of sleep immediately. So it's like the Pokemon you just put to sleep can wake up immediately the subsequent turn. But yeah, in that end game, you can exactly, like, I was thinking, oh yeah, I could Shadow Ball Rock Slide, but I was like, the way we lose that game is if the Solgaleo gets put to sleep. And since we had lowered the Venusaur's speed via Lagging Tail, the only way you can actually win is a Sacred Sword crit into us in that end game. I guess the other way they could have won is that they got a double Protect off, or just had Protect on Venusaur, though a lot of Venusaurs don't carry Protect nowadays. So you protect one of those two, and then Earthquake does not do spread damage. Or sorry, it does spread damage, and then the question is whether or not +2 Earthquake KOs Zacian at like 90%. I feel like it does anyway, but if Zacian has some investment, maybe it's not guaranteed. So, I'm not sure. Either way, though, fun set of games. That last game shows that Solgaleo has a lot of good late game potential. And in today's episode, we didn't really get to lead Spectre Solgaleo, but I will say the reality is that if you're using Spectre Solgaleo, you should always expect your opponent to counter it as a lead, just like Colossal, for example. So you can kind of mind game your opponents. That's kind of what we did in that first game where we expected, you know, Hydreigon. That gave us an advantage. In game 2, I definitely got outled, and I was just too nervous about Ferrothorn, but like I mentioned, Regieleki would have been a better lead, so it should have been Grimmsnarl with the Solgaleo and the Spectre in the back. So, yeah. Either way, though, this team is a lot of fun. It's relatively standard, but has a lot of cool tricks up its sleeve as well. And in the end of the day, I still think the Solgaleo is a really strong Pokemon in this format. So something that you should consider, especially if you're looking to use something outside of, say, just the top 5 most common restricted Pokemon. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Don't forget to answer the question of the day, and I'll see you all next time. All right, peace.